Hi, everyone. I hope you can all hear me all right and see the screen. Thank you for joining today's session. So today's session is the information session about the RGHI Fellowships. So there's still a couple people trickling through, but I thought it would be best to get started. The session will be recorded and added to the website. So if you have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A rather than the chat. It makes it easier to monitor what's been answered. You can also upvote questions if there's any question that has already been posed that you have as well. And if you have any specific questions that you would rather not put in the Q&A, please do email us directly. And I will provide the email at the end. So today I'll start by providing an overview of the scheme. So my name is Anne Thury, and I'm a strategic research officer at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And I work with RGHI to manage their fellowship process. We have Robert Jabelvis with us today. He's an associate professor at LSHTM, and he's a member of the panel, and he'll be on hand to provide any advice and tips and answer your questions. So to start off, what is RGHI? It was founded in 2020 and is funded by a grant from Reckitt. It is a not-for-profit foundation based in the US that is dedicated to the advancement of the field of hygiene, in particular promoting and funding rigorous hygiene science to enhance the evidence base. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can enable subtitles in case any of you need them. I'm not sure how to do that. Apologies if you do need them. So the fellowship programs are issued by an open competitive process to a global group of researchers. So a bit more about the fellowship program. The aim is to support early career researchers in the field of hygiene and health in their transition to becoming independent researchers. Fellowships will provide protected time for you to focus on your own research, shielding you from other professional commitments. It also provides funding for a challenging research project and an ambitious program of training, which will offer you accelerated personal and career development. The deadline for submissions is the 6th of June, 2022 at midnight Eastern time. So I would suggest that you check what time that would be in your time zone and give yourself plenty of time to submit prior to the deadline, just in case there's any issues. So fellowships need to address one of RGHI's priority areas. These are the link between hygiene and health/disease outcomes, setting specific hygiene-related interventions and their impact, determinants of hygiene behavior and effective behavior change approaches in high-burden countries, and intersection between hygiene, disease burden, and gender. So the fellowships will provide up to 3 years full-time salary support. We don't have a set salary for this. So we suggest that you contact the host institution or the one you're based at or would like to be based at. They usually have pay scales or can advise you on what the salary should be. And we'll provide on top of the salary up to $150,000 for research costs, up to $15,000 for travel expenses, and up to $15,000 for training and capacity building. It will also provide a flat overhead rate of 25% of the total direct cost listed. So to be eligible to apply, you should have no more than 5 years full-time equivalent postdoctoral experience, excluding any career breaks. You are also eligible to apply if you have not yet completed your doctoral qualification, but you must have successfully completed your qualification prior to starting the fellowship. You can be based at a university or research institute anywhere in the world, and you must hold a current contract of employment or offer of employment from the proposed host at the time of application. If you are applying to move to a different host institution, this just means that in the letter of support, they need to guarantee that if awarded, they will provide you with a contract of employment. You are not eligible to apply if you hold or have held an equivalent fellowship. If you're not sure, please drop us an email explaining what fellowship you have held or currently hold, and we can discuss whether we would consider this equivalent. Can't apply if you have a core funded post for the duration of the award. This means, for example, that you're tenure tracked. but basically it means that your institution pays your salary. Again, if unsure, drop us an email. So eligible host institutions are universities or academic research institutes based anywhere in the world, and they must provide a statement of their commitment to supporting, developing, and mentoring you for the duration of the award. And there's a number of letters of support that you will need to gather to apply for the fellowship. So you'll need a letter of support from the head of department or equivalent at the host institution, and they will need to include that they will provide a contract of employment if awarded and detail the support that they will provide for you. You need to identify a primary supervisor at the host institution who will agree to provide ongoing career development support and research guidance, and they will need a letter of support. You can identify up to 2 mentors to submit letters of support. At least one of these should be external to your host institution. And if you are proposing work outside of your country of residence, one of these mentors should be based at an institution in the country where the work will occur. So if you are planning on conducting field work in a different country, that mentor in that country where you were doing the field work would also count as a mentor that's external to the host institution. So I will now provide a brief overview of the application process and what we're asking for. So everything can be found on the RGHI Fellowship's How to Apply website. So all applications have to be submitted on RGHI's grant management system. And if you click on this link, it will take you to the page. We also have the application guidance that's available on this website. Please do familiarize yourself with the guidance, make sure that you are aware of what you need to do and what we expect in the various sections and what format we want things to be done in. We also request that you complete your CV and the budget using the templates that are available here. They're also available to download on the grant management system. So once you click on the RGHI grant management system, you'll be taken to the founded page, which looks like this. You will need to create a new account, and there's various tutorials to help you with that process. It is fairly straightforward, but we will ask for detail when you sign up about your host institution, and that's the one that you will be based at for the fellowship. So please make sure that you've identified one when you create your account. So once you create your account, you will be able to, within your dashboard, see the various schemes that you can apply for. At the moment, RGHI only has the fellowship program open. So if you then click on apply, you then get the application form. So one thing to note is that the system automatically saves as you go along. So you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about saving it or completing it all in one go. It will automatically save. So you could start an application now and finish it in June. The first thing you're asked is to confirm your eligibility. And again, if you have any doubts, please email us at fellowships@mail.rghi.org. So we ask that you confirm that you have read the eligibility criteria and that you confirm that you're eligible. This is a required question. The next section is project details. So in this section, one thing to note that you will need to gather the name of a key contact or authorized signatory at your host institution. So this would be the person who would sign the contract or the award letter. So make sure that you check with the head of department or your supervisor who that person should be. And you will need their position at the institution, their name, and their email. We then ask for your project title and your proposed fellowship start date, which should be between the 1st of November and the 1st of January 2023. Sorry, the 1st of November 2022 and the 1st of January 2023. We expect that you would start work as soon as possible with allowances for notice periods. The next thing in the section that we ask is the lay summary. The lay summary needs to be understandable by a general audience and should provide a summary of the research proposed, including key goals and outcomes. One thing to note is to please not include any confidential information within the lay summary. If you are awarded a fellowship, the summaries may be made public on the RGHI website. The final thing in this section is we ask you to let us know the primary RGHI priority area that the project addresses. So you can only click one of these, but you do have the opportunity to tell us any secondary RGHI priority areas that the project addresses. And here you can take as many as you need. The next section is applicant details, where you will be able to upload the CV. So again, you must use the CV template. And if you click on the link here, it'll automatically download. Make sure that it doesn't exceed 3 pages and that you use the font Calibri and size 11 and upload it as a PDF. We then ask what your nationality is. If you have multiple ones, please put your primary nationality. Then there's the personal statement. The personal statement needs to articulate your motivations for applying for the fellowship, detail your long-term research and career plans, and explain how the fellowship will help you reach those plans. You should need to also include a justification about the choice of institution and explain why it's the best place for you to conduct this research. The next section is a training plan, which should detail any training and development that you will undertake as part of the fellowship, and it needs to be tailored to your needs and the research proposal. You should clearly state how it will contribute to the overall research and fellowship aims, and it should cover both the training required to undertake the research or gain expertise in an area, but also training to support your development into a research leader. Next, there's the case for support and dissemination. So the case for support is your proposal. It is limited to 6 pages and should be uploaded as a PDF. You are allowed 1 extra page for references, and these should be included at the end. And it doesn't count to the 6 pages. We do have a list of headings that we would like you to use for the case for support, which are listed here and in the guidance. Sorry, I'm having some issues with my computer. I'm so sorry. Right. So the discussion and public engagement. So this section should include an outline of plans to engage with non-academic stakeholders, as well as plans for the dissemination of findings to all stakeholders.
And sorry, if you scroll to the top and just click on display settings, it should let you switch back to the presenter view. Right now we're getting the view.
Sorry, I lost access to my doc and that completely. Where did you say it is?
In display settings on your screen, on the screen with the slide viewer.
I just stopped sharing.
Okay.
Let me try again. Sorry. Okay, is that, no, I haven't shared it, so you can't see it. Does that look okay, Robert?
Yep, that's back to regular view. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Apologies, everyone. I don't know where I stopped, but the next session is dissemination and public engagement, which should include an outline of plans to engage with non-academic stakeholders, as well as plans for the dissemination of findings to all stakeholders. Next is the budget information. So here we outline what it provides and what we will not fund. So make sure that you look at this. It's also available in the guidance. We ask for the total project budget in US dollars, and you will need to upload the budget using the RGHI budget template. And if you click on the link here, it will automatically download as well. The final thing in this section is the budget justification. So each item listed in the budget should be explained and justified. And remember that value for money is an assessment criteria. So everything you ask for must be fully justified, and it should fit with your fellowship objectives. So finally, the last section is letters of support. So if you click on 1, it will open up 1 tab. If you click on 6, it will open 6 additional tabs. The tabs look like this. So it will ask you to provide the email address for the head of department or supervisor or mentor, and you can then compose an email. Within the system, there is a template that you can use. And once you click on compose email, a pop-up will appear, and you can put in the subject and the body of the email. This will be sent from the Foundant from the grant management system administrative email. So it might be worth emailing them beforehand just to give them a warning that this is coming. And the system will also automatically send them a reminder. So to finish the review and assessment, so your fellowship application will go through a rigorous peer review process by independent scholars skilled in the RGHI priority areas. A shortlisting panel will review all applications and recommend to invite applicants to interview. And interviews will then be held in September 2022 by the interview panel. Applications are scored based on your track record to date, your career development and progression plans, your research proposal, which should be high quality and aligned with RGHI priority areas, the impact of the research project, and value for money. So to finish off, I just wanted to highlight the grant writing session that's scheduled for the 15th of March at 12:30 GMT, where I will provide a bit more information about what we're looking for in each section and guide you through the process. We've also obtained access to a consultant called Parker Darrington that provides resources for grant writing. These are invaluable resources and would really help you with some of the framing for the various sections. The lay summary information is particularly helpful. If you would like access to these resources, please email us at fellowships@mail.rghi.org, and I will send you a code so you can access those resources for up to a month. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions about the process or for the panel, please pop them in the Q&A. See, we've got a lot of questions that have come through already. And if you have any further questions later on, please email us at fellowships@mail.rghi.org. Thank you. So there's a number of questions in the chat already, Robert.
Yeah, and so kind of looking at these, I've been kind of trying to compile some of those. Quite a few questions about kind of timelines and kind of starting the fellowship, kind of what the kind of 5-year period means. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think some of these are about PhDs. So should we work them in order?
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. Yeah, sorry. Do you want me to kind of talk through some answers to some of these?
There's some questions in the chat as well, so I'll keep that open as well. If you could all please use the Q&A, that makes it a lot easier to monitor. So the first question is, if someone completed their PhD in 2010, if they're eligible to apply. It would depend on if since then you've been working in research part-time or if you've had career breaks. So if you've been in full-time research since 2010, then you wouldn't be eligible to apply. If you have any extenuating things within that, if you've taken career breaks or worked in another field, then, sorry, do you would like to add something, Robert?
Oh, no, I was just marking that that was done. Sorry, we're okay. Trying to, we're two people running a webinar, and this isn't what we normally do. So thank you for your patience here. I'm just marking questions that are being responded to.
Right. So yeah, if you would like to drop us an email if you think that you would have, if you would be eligible, then drop us an email.
Just before we move on to the next question, just scanning through here, following up on another question, is the 5-year postdoctoral experience a must or flexible? That is definitely kind of, it's up to 5 years of full-time postdoctoral experience. It is not a requirement to have those 5 years, but something where if you up to 5 years are eligible. Good question. Yes.
Thank you. So there's a question about eligibility, about are those with masters looking for a PhD allowed to apply? And the answer is no, right?
Yeah, so this is definitely a postdoctoral fellowship. We're not referring to it as a postdoc because that can be a definite position, but part of the eligibility is that you have either received a PhD or will receive a PhD by the time the fellowship commences.
So there's a question about some example of what is or is not an equivalent fellowship, and this would be another type of early career fellowship. So if you had, say, a Henry Wellcome Fellowship from the Wellcome Trust. But again, if you have had one, please email us and we can discuss. but it's basically any other early career fellowship.
Looking at some of these Akinola kind of asked the question here. For individuals that are employed currently at an African institution but wish to use an overseas institution, is that an acceptable way to manage the fellowship? It would be. It is allowed for you to switch institutions, but you are, as Anne kind of explained, what we need in the fellowship review process is a letter guaranteeing employment for you at the institution that will host your fellowship. That can be either your current institution or an institution you plan to move to, but it is your responsibility to provide that documentation that a post is available if the fellowship is awarded.
Sorry, this is actually really hard to. So there was a follow-up about the 5 years of postdoctoral experience. So if you have more than 5 years of postdoctoral experience full-time, then you're not eligible to apply. That is correct. So I'm trying to like group all the ones that are about eligibility. So those who have already done a postdoctoral fellowship are eligible to apply. So in theory, no, but if you have had a postdoctoral fellowship, please email us and we can advise about whether we would consider you eligible to apply or not.
I think just to be clear on that, a lot of these are going to come down to the specifics of what that postdoctoral fellowship actually entailed. And it could have been you were in a postdoctoral position rather than a postdoctoral fellowship. If there's uncertainty, please do reach out. We can assess some of these things on a case-by-case basis rather than providing just general guidance. And we all realize academic research is a complicated field and there's a lot of nuance here. So, we're more than happy to kind of engage and talk about some of these things on a one-on-one basis as well.
So there's a question about core funded. So this is, most of you will not be on a core funded post. These are usually tenure track posts where your salary is paid by your institution rather than you being paid on someone's grant or being soft funded. And if you're not sure, again, drop us an email and we can discuss this further. So Robert, among the possible topics, is there a door for clinical trials?
I would say there definitely is a door for clinical trials, as long as it's in line with the kind of budget limits here. There are things, so kind of what RGHI, the fellowship, can provide is up to $150,000 in research expenses. Now, kind of looking at how trials run and how they operate, they can be quite expensive. So if there is space within that $150,000 US dollars over the life of the fellowship to support that clinical trial, then by all means, that is something that can be considered. But it's up to kind of the applicant to explain and justify how those resources would be used and how those are sufficient resources. So yes, provided it's a clinical trial that can be supported within the budget limit.
Thank you. Should we take more of the budget ones? So there's, is there a max limit when budgeting? And then a question, whether we would look more favorably on funding a research study which has a maximum budget of 150K, or would you consider funding 150K of a project with a larger budget?
Yeah, I'll start with that second question about the 150K as part of a larger project budget. I think there are cases where, the 150,000 that are available from RGHI are going to be used as a complement or kind of to work with existing funding. It's all about kind of specific, what are the risks here? What's the probability of other funding? I think it would be unlikely to fund 150,000 of a much larger project where there is no guaranteed funding. And it would really need to be, you'd really need to justify how this 150,000 from RGHI is being used differently than the other funded activities. What this can't be is just a top up to an existing project to just kind of, address specific budget shortfalls. So, however, it can be used as a complement to existing funding if new research objectives are associated with this funding or new research activities are associated with this research funding. But again, it's one of those things that there's a lot of nuance in answering that. I think in general, there's no reason why the total research costs need to be at 150, but it is important to specify what this RGHI funding is for and how that's going to add to the existing study or any other existing studies. About the kind of budget caps, yes, there are specific budget caps here that are available in the guidance. So there's $15,000, or sorry, I'm doing this from memory. $15,000 available for travel, for the fellows' travel over the life of the fellowship. There's another $15,000 that's available for capacity building and training opportunities over the life of the fellowship. And then there's up to $150,000 for research expenses. And those do need to be justified in the budget, what those resource requests are and how those would be used.
All right, I was just answering.
As well, sorry, and then the kind of top end of that would be as well as the salary for the fellow, for the person applying.
Okay, so there was a question about the first round, and I put it, I think people should be able to see it in answered where I typed in the question, but it has gone into answered. There has been a press release about the first round of fellows. So the link is there. So Robert, there's a question about the wide definition of hygiene and if research on lifestyle hygiene and sleep hygiene fit into this grant.
Again, I think I'm not trying to kind of pass the buck and say everything should be done in one of these kind of one-on-one conversations. The kind of 4 priority areas that have been outlined are things kind of, it's really up to the applicant and just kind of headline areas. What we do know and what we're all kind of starting with is hygiene is a very kind of interdisciplinary space, and it has a lot of overlap and connections with a lot of specific kind of other areas. There are these 4 priority areas that RGHI has articulated. And I think kind of these specific topics, I think without having some more information about how you see those aligning with some of the specific RGHI topics and a few more details about where you would go from this, it's hard to say, yes, this fits, or no, this doesn't. So I think in kind of considering the topics, just thinking of broad kind of headline levels, think about where that would align with the 4 priority areas. And then, feel free to email us, but provide a little bit more information than just 1 or 2 things. I think that's the easiest thing, but to first really look at those priority areas and see kind of where this would potentially align.
Do you want to say more about the letters of support that are needed? So there's a question about whether it should be from a host mentor and proposed mentors. Do you want to take that, or should I take it, Robert?
You can. I think you probably know more about the rules around the letters of support. So
yeah, so you'll need a letter of support from your head of department that will be representing your host institution. And this is head of department or equivalent, so every institution might have slightly different terminology for what that would be. You will need a letter of support from at least 1 supervisor that will be based at your host institution. So they will need a letter of support, and then up to 2 mentors, one of them that needs to be external from your host institution. Hopefully that answered your question.
I would say on top of that, if you are proposing to do work in a country outside of the country in which you are based, so if you are working in Kenya, but you're going to be doing research in Tanzania or something like that, we are asking you to please have a letter of support from 1 research mentor in each country where you will be doing the work that is outside of your host country. And this is important for anyone who's working kind of, in multi-countries. That's why we have kind of a very large number of possible letters of support. So basically, in brief, head of department, your supervisor, so the person who's directly going to mentor you, and at least one person external to your institution. And then from there, depending on your project, you may need more or you may be able to provide support. So.
Yeah, that seems to have answered the question. Oh, somebody asking, what if you have 2 PhDs, one completed in 2016 and another in 2018? 2 PhDs. First, we would say congratulations. That's an insane amount of work to cover 2 PhDs. So well done.
I think that's another kind of unique situation. That would be something I think we would need to kind of take back and consider with the larger RGHI decision-making bodies here. So I don't think we have kind of a clear answer on that one, but if you want to send a follow-up email, we can definitely look into the specifics around that more.
So somebody is saying they've been a researcher in an academic setting, tenure track professor since 2010. How do I determine my eligibility? Based on that, I would say you aren't eligible. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've defined this eligibility as 5 full-time years or 5 full-time years of postdoctoral research. So it would depend when you were awarded a PhD. Here it was since 2010. If you are kind of in a current tenure track position, that's another challenge here. That would be a core funded position or potentially a core funded position. So kind of these specific things, there's a kind of number of things. I think if there is any more uncertainty, please do kind of reach out and we can look at the case and the individual data points more one-on-one, but primarily that 5-year, up to 5 years of full-time experience post-PhD.
So if the fellow from an LMIC can choose any high-income country host institution, can the research site be LMIC?
So both the host institution and the research site can be in any countries that are appropriate for the proposed research. We do strongly encourage applicants from LMIC institutions who plan on basing their fellowships at LMIC institutions. And part of what we're having with kind of external mentoring programs here, and with the travel budget and capacity budget, is that we're hoping that kind of being based at an LMIC institution would not be a kind of a barrier to engagement with other institutions globally. So I mean, so just to kind of make it clear, you can be based at any institution where you will have an offer of employment. It can be at LMIC, it can be in a high income country, but we need to make sure that what's the right approach for your specific fellowship and the specific research that you're proposing.
Okay. So it's somebody writing, I'm currently doing a postdoc. Will I be eligible to apply? I have 2 years post-PhD research experience. Yes.
I guess kind of on first cut, that does sound like something that would apply. And this is where kind of that line that's very hard to kind of provide general guidance about whether something is a postdoctoral position or a postdoctoral fellowship specifically targeted for early career researchers. That sounds like it would be eligible. But again, if there are specific questions about your unique case, then please do reach out. The easiest way to get in touch is fellowships@mail.rghi.org. That is a shared inbox that goes to multiple people, so we can ensure that kind of answers come to that. Yeah. So there.
Okay, there's a question in the chat that's asking, do I need 2 supervisors if I'm from a low-income country and I want to collect my samples in my country and ship them to a high-income country for assays that are not available in my country? If yes, which institution is going to get the funding?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time? Just to understand.
So somebody asked me if they need 2 supervisors, if they are from a low income country and they want to collect samples in their country and ship them to a high income country for assays that are not available in their host country. And if yes, which institution is going to get the funding?
So for that, in that particular case, and I think this is something, you know, when we think about kind of institutional collaborators that may be across all of these fellowships, so the money for your salary would go to the institution that is the host institution for the fellow. For something like kind of, you know, kind of cost of those of laboratory work, if that needs to be kind of done through an external partner or engaged with someone else, then that would be probably, and again, we can look more into the specifics, but that would most likely be a subcontract that the host institution would then award to another institution to complete that work for them. So the money primarily would go to the host institution, but then the host institution, under kind of working with the fellow, would be responsible for paying for any of the research costs that are associated with this. If that clarifies, you know, it's always tricky when we kind of start talking about this, but in general, the money will go to the host institution, and the host institution and the fellow are then responsible for ensuring funds and agreements are in place for any subcontracted work. One other question on the chat is if an applicant is not successful in this round, is he/she immediately eligible to reapply in the immediate next round? Yes, absolutely. There's not a reason why you would need to sit out a round, and we are hoping, you know, yes, in short, yes, you can apply immediately as soon as the next round is open. So
there's no restrictions on reapplications as long as you are still eligible in the next round. So you would still need to fit the eligibility criteria. So there's a question in the Q&A about the next session on 15th of March. So if you've registered on Eventbrite, it will send you a link in the same way that you got the link for this time. So I think it sends an email the week before, and then 2 days before and 2 hours before. So watch out for those emails that are automatically sent from Eventbrite. So if awarded, is the money sent to the university or me? So it will be sent to your host institution, and it will be managed by your host institution, not yourself personally. So if you have any additional questions, please keep sending them through. But in the meantime, we thought it might be good for Robert to discuss sort of the assessment criteria and what the panel is looking for in those 5 sections. And just there's a quick question: how many projects are expected to be funded? And I think it's 5. Is that right, Robert?
Again, you know, I would say kind of in the neighborhood of 5. The kind of final decision will just kind of come down to kind of the kind of quality of the applications, the numbers that are kind of really great opportunities. So I would say 5, give or take a few in either direction, depending on kind of the number and quality of applications that are received. So.
Yeah. And if you finished your PhD last year, it sounds like you would be eligible to apply. So, Robert, do you want to talk us quickly through the assessment criteria and what the panel is looking for?
Sure, and Anne mentioned these on a slide. There's kind of 5 criteria that are reviewed at multiple stages in the application process, both at the review, at the shortlisting panel, and kind of during subsequent interviews for those that kind of make it to that stage. The first one is really kind of track record to date. And this is really kind of a focus on what research outputs and the quality of research outputs that the applicant has produced. previous grants that the applicant has held, and really evidence of any kind of research leadership. So taking a role as a PI on projects or leading on specific things. Now, we do have, and I know we've kind of discussed this quite a bit, this idea of up to 5 years of eligibility. And careers can change quite a lot over those first 5 years post-PhD. So all of those criteria, we do assess them relative to where you are in your own kind of career trajectory. So how many years post-PhD do you have? And we also consider kind of opportunities and kind of resource availability as well. So there's no kind of set metric that we're using there, because that's really adjusted kind of to what the applicant has done and will be doing. The next one is career development and trajectory. This is really where kind of your training plan becomes quite front and center, and how that criterion is assessed. This is really looking at how will the research and training plan collectively support your long-term career growth. What's the long-term career vision here, and how does the proposed research and the proposed training get you to that point? I think one important point here to kind of flag is that this is really where we would want to see the training program and a research project that are aligned, that they're not kind of two separate areas, that these really are complementing one another. The next is a high quality research project. Here, the assessment is really on the rigor and the novelty of the proposed research, and really making sure that there is a proper balance between feasibility and ambition. We don't want projects that are kind of unrealistic within the kind of budget ceiling or the time frame, but we do want applicants that are kind of to propose an ambitious program of research. We really want with these applications, I think it is very important for you to be able to, as the applicant, to demonstrate an understanding of the current research landscape and information gaps. So what is novel about the proposed research? What evidence gap is this research proposing? And how does this fit within current hygiene research? And we really want to make sure that this is a cohesive body of work rather than several disparate activities, so that all of the research activities are building around a central theme. The kind of fourth criteria was value for money. This is really, are you as the applicant making the best use possible of RGHI resources? And is the budget realistic for the proposed activities? And are the proposed activities realistic for the budget? So really making sure that you haven't kind of under-costed certain aspects of this or over-costed specific aspects of this. And finally, the area that I think it's sometimes a little bit more difficult for us to think about as career researchers is impact. What is the long-term impact of this proposed research on both policy and practice at the global, at the national, and the local level? This is kind of how will this research really inform policy and practice, and what activities have been built into the research process to ensure adequate research uptake beyond just kind of publications as kind of a traditional metric. What's being done here to kind of engage with the broader sector to ensure kind of proper research uptake and impact of the work? Yeah, happy to take questions on that and describe it further. Yeah, I can't see the screen anymore, but yeah.
There's an unrelated question. Somebody's asking if it's possible to hire a research assistant using the budget.
Again, I think it would be definitely possible to hire a research assistant, provided that that research assistant fits within that kind of research expenses. You know, and if this is a research assistant, are they spending their time kind of working directly under the supervision? It really would depend on the nature of the project and the role of that research assistant in the proposed research. So it is definitely possible, but it would depend on kind of how that fits within the budget and within the kind of overall research plan.
Thanks. There doesn't seem to be any more questions. Do you have anything additional that you might want to add, Robert?
I would say kind of Anne mentioned this kind of right at the end, these resource availability, kind of the access to some key resources to help you as you're thinking about your fellowship. We've set this up so we can get you access to, if you want to kind of describe the resources in more detail. For that, an email to fellowships@mail.rghi.org, and we can send you a code to access these resources, and you get a month-long access to these resources to help you develop your research proposal and your overall application. It's the kind of thing I wish had existed when I were applying to fellowships. So.
No, they're really great resources that are available that will provide sort of tips and advice on how to frame your proposal, how to frame your summary in various sections, and taking into account how panels might review your application. So please do email us and we'll send you a code to get access to it. But I think if there's no other questions.
There had been a hand raised among the participants, but it went back down. I don't know if you're able to type your question in the Q&A. Okay, maybe.
Yeah, they've left. So I was keeping an eye on it. I wanted to go through all the questions, but then they dropped out. So hopefully they'll email. But yeah, so just as a reminder, the email is fellowships@mail.rghi.org. Yeah, please do send us an email.
Is it fellowship or ships with an S?
Fellowships with an S. Yeah. Okay. And we do have one last question that just come through. I think it's about how we will assess and whether applicants from low-income countries and high-income countries, are they going to be considered based on the same scale of their research achievements?
I would say, you know, that's kind of in brief. I think when we say that we're taking into consideration kind of both the applicants, kind of where you are in your career stage, how many years post PhD, relative opportunities that you've had to engage in research activities, relative resource availability. I'm not going to say specifically that this is from an LMIC applicant would be judged X way and a high income HIC applicant would be judged in the same way, because there are quite a number of well-resourced institutions based in LMICs where there would be comparable levels of opportunities. These are the things, we take that into consideration and we would try to kind of do that. There's not a single scale that is being applied to any one applicant. There are criteria and we look at those, but within those, there's multiple reviewers and there's a lot of kind of trying to match those criteria to the opportunities the applicant has had. So in short, they would not be viewed the same because I don't think any two applicants, regardless of where they're from, are going to be judged on the exact same scale. We really do try to adjust that based on what the type of work is, the type of institution, the location, and career and years post PhD.
Great, thank you. All right, there's been no new questions. So thank you everyone again for joining and for your questions. Thank you, Robert, for your time. And like I said, the recording will be made available on the website in the coming weeks. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.